Hi, my name's Rob Scott from UC Today, bringing you the latest news and conversation from the unified communications and collaboration space. So today I'm joined by Mitel and we're going to be discussing making work from anywhere a reality. So welcome everybody.
Thanks, Rob.
Good morning.
So good to see you all. A very apt topic today, certainly one we've seen dominating the news lately. However, just before we get started, why don't we do a quick round of introductions? Nick, would you like to go first?
Yes, of course. Good morning. My name's Nick Riggott. I'm the Mitel UK&I Country Sales Director, supporting all of our partners and then customers and working across all of our cross-functional teams.
Fantastic. Thanks. And Leigh?
I'm Leigh Thomas, Director of International Consulting Sales Engineering. I work right across the international region for Mitel, taking the requirements from what we see in the field back into our product management organization and R&D.
Fantastic. And James?
Yep, so I'm James Mackie, so I head up Mitel's Sales Engineering team in the UK and Ireland. So our job to kind of fully understand both Mitel's products, but also what our customers really need and kind of bridge the two together.
That's great. A very warm welcome to you all. So we said we'd talk about anywhere work. And just to kick things off, Nick, I was just, first of all, wondering, are we heading back to the office anytime soon? What's the state of play out there?
Well, I'd certainly like to think so, Rob. I mean, I think when I looked this morning, it was about 34% of the UK has received their first vaccinations. I know I've got 2 out of 3 children at school, so that's going to help as well as of this morning. But, it's just a case of reassessing exactly how we're going to approach this now. Policies are going to need to change so much because what we were used to before is just going to be everything's completely changed. So it's not just a case of understanding what was in place before, it's understanding the approaches and the attitudes required to support that. We've been used to sat in front of laptops for the last 12 months talking on video calls such as this, which has been great as a way of trying to keep going, but we need to readjust in terms of how we're going to approach that from a hybrid perspective to ensure that we've got that inclusive capability to ensure that we can all communicate as effectively as we can be regardless of location. So it's not going to be straightforward, Rob.
Yeah. It's important. It's important to bear in mind as well that it's easiest for us to forget that while most organizations have had some sort of staff working remotely, not everyone has actually kind of left the office. But there are a lot of organizations that made a real success of remote working. Some of our partners some of our customers such as City of Edinburgh Council, where they've had 2,000 staff that used to work in their city centre headquarters. They're now all kind of working remotely and they're still giving a great customer experience to their citizens. So not all roles need to be kind of 100% office based. And it can be still a great benefit to staff to have the opportunity or the choice to be able to work from home.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, James. And I think that's where some of the confusion is, isn't it? Or some of the challenge. So Leigh, I was keen to ask you more about this in terms of developing a strategy for, these different models almost, because we've got work from home, hybrid work and anywhere work. What's the best way to approach, this new era of workplace and work style?
Well, my belief is that hybrid working is probably the potential to enable companies and the workers to work seamlessly from anywhere and allowing the flexibility and getting the best of both worlds out of their employees. So whether people are in the office, people working from home, I think you get more from using the tools and allowing the people to work wherever they need to be. Quality collaboration and what we're seeing with the communications tools that we have today are allowing us to do that. And I think COVID has probably driven a lot of that requirement, but people are seeing the benefits of home working and what they're moving forward, how they can work seamlessly. So I think we will see the people wanting to work either seamlessly within the office or at home, depending on how their circumstances are.
Yeah, completely. And I think, as well, Leigh, you've got that challenge where over the last 12 months, we've all been able to assess what's kind of worked well and what's been a bit of a battle, what's been a bit of a frustration. And taking that forward, it's understanding exactly how that can be deployed, when we move into this hybrid world. So You look at what a lot of organisations have utilised technology to a phenomenal extent, so successfully but albeit potentially on a free level, or at least on a sort of desktop level that might not be as native or as integrated into business process as you'd expect. So I think that's probably going to be a bit of a question mark there. The strategy needs to be about assessing what's really sustainable, both from a technical and a commercial perspective, as we move forward into this model, because you've got to have consistency. We've been very used to certain ways of working over the last 12 months, and I think it's going to be important to ensure that we can deploy that consistent capability. But, communication is going to be, it's at the heart of everything that we do, and effective organisations deploy those sort of strategies very, very successfully. So
I agree with that, Nick. And it's not just the technology. So yes, if the organisation's got a contact centre, they need to have robust remote contact centre capabilities. But we also need to consider all the policies and processes, either creating new ones or adapting old ones. How do you look after, train and support these remote workers? How do you protect customer and payment data? And how do you ensure that those remote colleagues are kind of valued just as much as the ones that are there in the office?
That's some really good points.
Yeah,
I completely agree. We're not just talking users here. We're talking teams. We're talking customers. We're talking the business, aren't we, as well? It has a huge impact. And as we kind of get released from this lockdown, I suppose there's a huge job to kind of recalibrate, isn't there? I want to just touch on the top challenges here. Maybe over to Nick first on this one. But in terms of the top challenge that you guys are speaking to, customers, organizations all the time, what are, with organizations faced with right now?
Well, again, it's the adjustment, Rob, isn't it? How do you go from where we've been for the last 12 months into actually, approaching that far more direct, far more engaged environment that we're going to find ourselves in? I think there's a lot of empathy required, because you're going. Some individuals may well be re-entering the workplace. They might not be particularly comfortable. They might feel slightly under duress about having to reintegrate and go back into the workplace in this way. So I think you need to try and understand and empathise with others and be very aware as to how others might well be feeling. And again, that's about ensuring that we can afford those sort of effective levels of communication in that way as well. So I think the key thing really is about bringing people back into the workplace, because people give organisations the identity. I can certainly say on behalf of Mitel that we are totally about the people. The people certainly bring it to life. And it's those conversations, those ad-lib, coffee machine, water cooler conversations, whatever you might want to call them. They're the things that I've really missed. So yeah, it's about trying to still move back into the workplace as it's going to be, but about trying to bring the best out of the people that we've got around us effectively.
Yeah, I'd also like to add to that. There's a greater desire for flexibility. So we need. I think the employees' needs need to be met. There shouldn't be a single way of working. So I think that we touched on earlier that we need a hybrid workforce where the workers can actually choose the working environment that they want to work within. And the other thing, I think, is businesses will actually be able to retain top talent in the future, because if they give them that approach where they can actually work from home or go into an office, you're not restricting yourself to a certain pool of resources. You can go out far wider to look for that. And the other thing is, obviously, there's going to be a natural apprehension for some employees to actually go back into the office, because they're not used to doing that. So they've not had that direct interaction. They've not had to commute. So obviously there's that balance where people will still want to have that home working capability. So I think organizations do need to listen to their employees and choose and then support them in their choice to be flexible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a really good point, Lee. You've got to make sure well-being is not just it's not just a buzzword. It's absolutely central to the organisation. You've got to make sure we have regular check-ins, make sure that people are comfortable with the environments we're working in. You've got to look after our people. So it's going to be a critical part from in terms of moving back into work, that we just ensure that everyone is feeling in the right place and that we can support those that might need the help wherever required.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to the technology that's being kind of implemented or refined as well to support them. Because as well as introducing it, you need to make sure things such as the processes, the goals, and the way you kind of manage people are all aligned to enable it to kind of slot seamlessly into the organization. I mean, technology is definitely going to be really helpful with a lot of this, and it is really important to do the things such as keeping applications such as CRM software and your contact center platforms, keeping that up to date so you can get all of the latest benefits out of it. And if you're looking to introduce anything new, such as chatbots or conversational IVR, just take a moment to think about, are they actually genuinely able to address the common problems that your customers face? Otherwise, it's just, introducing technology like that is just going to frustrate customers, and it isn't going to then kind of assist them when they can come through to an agent if that person's not actually informed as to what happened to them previously. So really thinking about how the whole thing kind of comes together and from start to finish.
Some really good points there, and especially the technology pieces. A lot of organisations, I imagine, have either quite quickly upgraded or updated or added new technology into their kind of communication stack to kind of keep the lights on. But also, we're also seeing a lot of organisations look at new technologies to help deal with the kind of new way of work. So it's interesting times, and a great segue into my next question. And over to you, Nick, on this one, if possible. It's kind of how is Mitel addressing these challenges with its technology?
So there's just a far greater need for agility, flexibility, a more open approach as to how we embrace the changes that we need to deliver in terms of ensuring that we can continue to evolve. We've been around as an organisation for a substantial amount of time, but we've never seen such an acceleration as we've seen over the last 12 months of ensuring that we can continue to deliver solutions that both support our partner requirements, but also, more importantly, the requirements of the end user in delivering those solutions.
Yeah, I think we believe there's a stronger focus of adopting cloud-based UC solutions. I think one of the things we've seen is one of the challenges customers have come against is whether they could. When we went into sort of the pandemic, we saw customers where they weren't ready for home working, they weren't geared to have that, and so there was some that just didn't have the capability. There was other customers that had the capabilities, but they didn't really know how to switch them on, and there was others where they'd invested in their platforms years ago, where the capabilities were there, but it was just a matter of switching some of those features on. So you saw that challenge with all customers, that they had this mindset that there would never be a need for anybody to work from home, and that quickly changed.
It's been like the world's biggest kind of business continuity test for everyone to kind of make sure that these solutions that have been talked about or have been maybe kind of implemented, making sure they actually do work in a real environment. But everyone's going through the same challenge at the same time.
It certainly has.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly leveled it out. We've got we're all in the same situation. We're all needing to assess what's a feasible solution for now, but also whether we've got the right sort of infrastructure and capability to deliver these enhanced cloud-based solutions as we move forwards. And not all organisations understand how to understand what sort of readiness assessments are required in order to support this. Something that obviously Mitel have been heavily engaged in over the last 6 months or so, but we've all been thrust into this position whereby we've had to reassess and understand not just the market, but what potentially that sustainable strategy must look like as we move into the future as well. So, we're all having to evolve and learn and adapt as we go and try our best to deliver the sort of solutions that support the requirements of our users.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my technology, things such as AI assistants, things such as CRM integrations, and even just unified communication itself, I think people have really kind of seen the value of it, because when you are working from home, when you are working from anywhere, it's even harder to keep on top of multiple applications, notifications, emails, phone calls, voice calls. There's just so much which, when you're just working from a laptop screen, just makes it all so much harder. So the more that we can kind of use this technology to support people, streamline that element of their work, it just kind of helps deliver that quality of remote experience.
So from a technology perspective, I need to try to say the word, Rob, but we've released a range of anti-microbial handsets. So it's about, this is another challenge that we wouldn't have thought was going to be necessary if you go back 18 months or so. But now, in order to make sure that we can support that concern, that quite valid concern in the workplace around bacteria spreading in the workplace, that again, it's just another way in which we've had to try and address a potential requirement within the market. But from the feedback we've had so far, they seem to be really well received.
Yeah, it's great to see, and the vendors like Mitel really reacting to the current situation and making environments COVID safe and hybrid work ready. So fantastic. So my last question for today is kind of all about the future, really. Kind of how's this going to pan out? So maybe over to you, Leigh, first on this one. But how are things going to evolve, and what the business leaders need to think about going forward?
Yeah, Rob, I think some of the considerations that need to be considered here is reviewing the technology that's been implemented to date, and looking at probably the longevity of it, and making sure that it question yourself whether that does it integrate with some of the other things like back end integration. Whether can you do CRM, ERP integration? Does the technology lend itself to any APIs to basically to support some type of integration? And then obviously considering things like cloud communication solutions to probably streamline operations, so it takes away the complexity that when you're building things on premise. And so you really could, if you like, link advanced communication capabilities to key business processes and custom workflows, and then think how you could make your employees even more productive and effective.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that all these companies, they are still in competition with each other. And elements around the personalization of that customer experience are still going to be really important as we go forward. So whether it's tools such as increased digital offerings, increased use of artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, and in particular kind of organizations where as this technology matures, there's more kind of specific implementations of it. I mean, AI, for example, it can be a huge amount of work to build an AI kind of chatbot from scratch. More and more we will see companies that are able to specialize in the offerings to make it easier for smaller companies to compete with larger ones.
Yeah, I think the other thing we got to consider is in the future there may be some focus combining video conferencing with other emerging technologies and create a more immersive experience. I guess imagine augmenting video conferencing solution with an AR to enhance maybe digital whiteboarding. Or think of a scenario where you have a service engineer out in the fields. They need some assistance. They call into a center, and through advanced AR, maybe that they can actually resolve an issue remotely. And the other thing is maybe remote training, where if personal training is difficult or expensive, then obviously you can use this sort of technology to enhance video conferencing, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other part as well, we don't really know what the actual workplace is going to look like as we move forwards. We've kind of tried to address the concern around hot desking with the antimicrobial, always a tough one to say, handsets out there. But ultimately, office space is going to completely change. Collaboration suites are going to be we need to understand how technology can foster the communication and collaboration requirements of the workplace. So, we're already seeing potentially changes on the high street. Organisations downsizing drastically, a lot more work from home hubs that are going to be popping up within town centres and city centres across the UK. We've already seen this happen. So again, it's about just understanding how you can still deliver that consistent communication and collaboration experience, but understanding the role that technology plays in that's going to be really interesting as we see this play out over the next 12 to 18 months, Rob.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's certainly, an anywhere work world nowadays, and it'd be certainly interesting to see what vendors do, like Mitel, to further kind of accommodate the needs of users and teams and customers as we go forward. So Hey, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great, touching base with you all on this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
And that's it from us. So if you've enjoyed today's session, please subscribe to UC Today News and give this video a quick share on social. It's always appreciated. And if you're a UC fan and want to be part of the conversation, you can join us using the UC News hashtag on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And our social links are in the description. So I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.